All right. Good morning, guys. Week number 4. It's Monday. Another video from me. I'm going to start with some feedback concerning your submissions. And then after we talk about what's due on Sunday, we're going to cover chapter 6 and 7. Okay? So I have my notes in front of me. The learning games have been going pretty well. As you noticed, based on some feedback I got, I increased the time limit to 8 minutes. So starting this week, I doubled it. So you have double the time that you used to. And I'm hoping that will be more than enough. Okay. Be careful. I just want to remind you that you have 4 choices, right? And you can only use them once. So you have those 4 answers and you're looking for the question part to match it. You can use those 4 options once, one for its answer. Okay. Um, what else? Yeah, and then concerning the learning opportunities, again, we're doing very well. We're getting better. Take your time. Don't rush it. I see again fewer, but still some silly mistakes. Take your time. Take your time. There's no time limit, so there's no reason for you to rush it, and you'll be doing even better in the future. All right. So for today, we have already covered part 1 of our book, which is the first introductory chapters. And then we move to chapter 2, which we'll learn about the participants. And then now we're moving towards part 3, which is understanding sport and exercise environments. And that's 3 chapters, so it's 6 and 7 and 8 for next week, but we're going to cover chapter 8 next week. And that will lead us to part 4, which is we're going to focus on processes that have to do with groups. Okay, so before I start with talking about chapter 6 and 7, covering that material, I want to share my screen and I want to go to our Moodle site and show you what's due for next week. So today we're covering chapter 6, competition and cooperation, and chapter 7, feedback, reinforcement, and intrinsic motivation. So we have a good amount of information to cover. And I'm having, to be honest, I'm having a little bit of a headache, but we'll be fine. All right, so for Sunday, LO6, okay, again, same thing about chapter 6 and your learning game, LG6, 8 minutes, as you can see. And for chapter 7, LO7, Sunday again, and LG7, again, Sunday and 8 minutes. All right, I'm going to stop sharing that. And let me see, chapter 6. And I'm going to start sharing the PowerPoint slideshows. Okay. And let's see if this is working. Excellent. All right. Chapter 6, part 3, understanding sport and exercise environments. And we're starting with competition and cooperation. Okay. As we're usually doing, we're starting with definitions. Both of them, competition and cooperation, can be used for in order to define success. They're a little bit different. Both of them processes, as you can see. But the first one, it has to do with a comparison with performance of others. okay? Or as you can see, when participating in the same event. Again, there has to be some kind of comparison. Cooperation, on the other side, again, a process, again, used for, um, has to do with the notion of success. But here, you can see that it's, the key word is collective achievement of a group, okay? That usually they work together and they have a specific, usually common goal. So in cooperation, the rewards here are shared usually equally. So let's say you're playing basketball, you won the championship. Some people were included in the starting five. They played a lot, but you didn't because you were sub, right? But still, you're a champ. You're gonna receive your medal, and that goes into your resume. Okay. The first competition is a process that it has again that the reward structure, but if I succeed, it's like a binary system. If I succeed, you fail. So it's a little bit different. In cooperation, we see that a group of people can all be successful together and they share their work equally. All right. Competition. We sometimes competition has a bad rap, but it shouldn't. At least the way we define it. What should have a bad rap is decompetition. When you see your opponents as rivals, and you don't even hesitate to hurt them or do something illegal or unethical because your ultimate goal is success. Okay, so you don't care about anything else. So you play soccer and you tackle somebody that he or she's their best player in order to take them out. So the other team loses their competitive advantage in a sense. Okay, so competition is something positive. The competition is not. We call it a process. Since we call it a process, it has stages, it has steps. You see the objective competitive situation, right, compared to some kind of standard, which I think here it makes sense. And then we have the subjective. So it's how you perceive that. Okay, so how you perceive the situation. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit in more depth. Okay, and then based on that, right, you're either going to approach the situation or you're going to try to avoid the situation. And you see there are different levels to do that, right? So behavioral, like you may try to play against a better opponent because you see it as a challenge, or you may try to avoid a weaker opponent because you see it as too easy. Physiologically, your heart rate is going up. Psychologically, you get aroused, and so on and so forth. So based on how you see it, you're going to get a response. And then based on the response, like if you don't accept, if you avoid the situation, the whole process stops there. If you don't, then we have consequences. And we usually we see them as positive if you win and negative if you lose. However, again, it's the perception. I may lose, but I still see it as a success because we lost by 2 points, but we played the best team in the championship, the team that has been winning the conference for the past 15 years. Okay. All right. And this is a figure to show you that if you start with objective all the way at the top, you go clockwise, subjective response and consequence, and then you could get. Some examples, triple cyclist. Again, I'm just going to use a couple of them. I can't cover all of the slides in the slideshows because we'll need like 5 hours. But Triplet did a very simple example with cyclist, and he figure out that then they're competing with each other. They perform better. In Deutsche puzzles, we have teams, right, groups, and we intentionally they told students in some groups that they're going to get a reward based on how many puzzles they solve individually, and then in other students they said they're going to get a reward as a group based on the number of puzzles that they're going to solve as a group, right? And at the end, the students that were self-centered or they were pushed to be self-centered, uh, they were trying, to just solve the puzzles for themselves. They were eco-centered, self-centered, so on and so forth. The other ones that were more cooperative. And why are we even saying that? Because the groups that were cooperating more, like competing with each other, they solved more puzzles. So competition is not good or bad. It depends on the environment that we put people in. Nothing too crazy here. Other examples. We talked about that. Now, we shouldn't see those two things, like we shouldn't see this as a binary system. So you either go towards competition or cooperation. A lot of times in sport that happens, but that's not right. You can have both, and it depends on the situation, and a blend may be the best. Right now, the ratio of competition over cooperation, it really depends on the sport environment, but it's not that you definitely have to choose. Okay, some attributes related to both competition and cooperation, so this is common ground, and that's why we can have both. Let me give you some examples: competitive means and competitive ends. So in this environment, you should have competitive means and competitive ends. For example, 100-meter or yard dash. Okay, cooperative means competitive ends. So basketball, we can cooperate, right? And then at the end, you can have a competitive goal to win. Okay. Now, individual means, individual ends. It's for not generally not for team sports, individual sports, as these examples. And then we can have even corporate means individual ends. So we're both sprinters, right? We work out together because that helps us compete. But then when we compete in different, like, let's say with different gender, right? So we compete in different races, but we practice together. And then the last and fifth example, cooperative means cooperative ends. Here, a lot of times we do that with youth, right? We create a game. So we create two teams, they're playing volleyball, but we'll let them keep playing as long as they don't drop the ball. So they kind of, they're trying to cooperate with both teams, because the way for them to win, which is to keep playing, is not to drop the ball. So they're passing it over the net, but not in a way to make the other team lose, but in a way to help them keep playing so they can throw the ball back into their side. I hope that makes sense. All right. Yeah, as I said, cooperative games can be revised by changing the rules. Some general principles are here that we can have with through cooperation and with youth sport. If anybody of you has any experience or would work with youth or children, right? You see, we don't keep a lot of scores. We give more positive feedback, give them a lot of opportunities, learn new skills, and we just want them to participate first. Does sport competition transfer to life skills and achievement? Well, yes, but as you can see, only for school-sponsored sports, and there is no related to social or occupational mobility later on. Now, unstructured play. Again, here, we use a lot with youth. Uh, we don't focus a lot on the rules. So you have the game of basketball, but if they travel, you let them travel. Okay, not like from one side to the other, but you know what I mean. So you don't want to use your whistle too much and stop it all the time. You want it's action centered. You want them to play, so you kind of don't use too much structure, so you can have more action. Okay, that's exactly what we mentioned in this guy right here, Cote, right? He talks about deliberate play, and a couple of years ago, I wrote we did research with some of the students, and we presented it at the national conference of the American College of Sport Medicine, and had to do with this deliberate play, okay, which is a form of, and you can look it up or look in our book of playing in a non-structured way, but then again, it's deliberate play. So there is a specific amount of rules in order to um, support participation, but then again, have some kind of rules in there, some kind of framework. Mm, trying to see if there's anything important that I have to mention. Um, now, that's the one of the last, if not the last slide, if I remember very well. In business, a lot of times it's different than sports because again, for some reason in sports we see it as a binary system, like either uh, more towards cooperation or towards competitiveness. But here in business, a lot of times people have to work together, right, in order to achieve a common goal. And even more so in the military. And for those that don't know, I was in the Greek special ops. So it's a matter of life and death. Let's say we're teams of 8. It is really important, for example, for us in order to stay alive, that everybody remains silent and we don't make a noise. So the chain is as strong as its weakest link, right? So if somebody makes a noise and just steps on the branch, it breaks, then we're all exposed. So cooperation there, uh, although you have a goal and you're trying to achieve your goal, is super, super important. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing that screen and then I'm gonna go to our other slideshow if I find it. Okay. Chapter 7 that has to do with feedback is a little bit longer. Again, I'm trying to stop and cover the things that I find most important. All right, let me share again. Here we go. Full screen. Is this working? Boom. All right. Chapter 7, second chapter for this week, feedback, reinforcement, and intrinsic motivation. All right. Another definition, okay? Now here, when we talk about reinforcement, we're using two things. And that's one of the most basic information that has to do with behavior, right? We use rewards or we use punishment. Why? Because we're trying to increase, as you can see, or decrease somebody or even ourselves to do the same thing again in the future. All right, so you have a young kid to just do something, you punish them if it was something that they shouldn't do again, you reward them if you want them to associate, whatever they did with something positive, so they do it again in the future. That's pretty much it. Very basic a very basic component of human behavior. And that's how our mind-brain works. Okay, that's exactly what we said. If something results in good consequence, most likely we'll do it again. If not, most likely we won't. Right? However, however, people react differently to the same reinforcement. And in class, a lot of times I give them an activity, and I give them like 5 reinforcements, like, and we're pretending we're in the same team, let's say basketball team or soccer team, for our college, and I give, like I said, if we win, I can give you a gift card of $10 each. I can take you to the movies. I can give you all the same shirt. I give them different examples of reinforcement, like the ones I just mentioned, and then I'm asking them to rank them, and everybody's ranking them differently, right? Which means that if I choose to take you to the movies as your coach, some people will like it more, some people will like it less, some people won't even care. So why do I do that? So that's why it's complex, how to reinforce people. And then also, let's say you score 50 points in that basketball game, right? And I reward you with whatever you want. You know, I mention you in the press conference. I give you this. I give you that. I just talk to you at the end. I praise you in front of the team. It doesn't mean that you can't score 50 points in the next game, even if you want to, because you can't control all variables. Okay, it's not that simple. And then again, people receive different influence in different situations. So um, we don't really know if that different reinforcer that you will receive in that different situation, you will receive it the same or a different way. All right, so let's go here. Here we have some approaches that we can influence behavior. And in a positive approach, we're more about rewarding, and the negative approach, we're more about punishing. In general, we say, be more positive than negative, although both work and they're different, okay? But you can see that we can have any of those approaches, and it doesn't mean that if you're positive, you always have to be positive, or if sometimes you're negative, you have to always be negative. You have to combine, exactly. And a lot of times when we're trying to investigate coaches, we can just stay on the sideline, bleachers, and just see how many times they give positive, they reward or they punish, and we create a ratio. There are different kind of reinforcers. When somebody is learning something new, either they're young or not, it doesn't really matter. But if they're learning, you have to give more of that, right? As they're learning it, you give less and less and less, so they don't expect it. However, you can see that in both cases, it has to be immediate. So because it's really important to make that connection. Oh, I did this and I got this, boom. So if I do it again, I'm expecting it. I'm expecting to get the same thing. So it has to be soon. The sooner the better, so we can make those connections. All right. You can see that we can reward behaviors. There's another thing in the second doc called shaping. So if something is difficult and I'm getting better, I'm not getting it. So let's say I'm doing Olympic lifting and it's so technical, I'm getting better at snatching. I'm not perfect, but it's perfect. So I'm just rewarding somebody, and that's called shaping. I can reward performance, not just the outcome. I can reward the effort, again, not just the outcome. And emotional and social skill, like if somebody, let's say it's about fair play, right? excuse me, usually in class I show a couple of videos that have to do with fair play. Like somebody, you're playing a soccer game, you're attacking, and there's the last person from the opposing team, and the defender, and he or she just doesn't feel well, just falls down. You have the opportunity to start moving forward and score, or stop and help that person. What do you do? Some of the students, just joke around and like, I'll just go and score. Some others like, I need to stop and check what's going on, like, because above everything, we're humans. So fair play should be something to consider when rewarding. Okay. And then we have the motivational feedback that I'm praising you in order to increase your confidence. And then I have instructional feedback. And instructional feedback has to be very specific. Like I really like the way you threw the ball in between this and this, and how you avoided this. So you have to explain, so your player will try to do the same thing. Don't give fake feedback in general. There's a knowledge of results and a knowledge of performance. So it's like if you are doing the sport of 20-meter pistol shooting, right? There's somebody who tells you how far away you're from bullseye or not. That will be knowledge of results. Knowledge of performance is I'm your coach, and again, you're deadlifting, or squatting or whatever, and I'm standing from the side laterally, right? And I see you, and I make some comments. Also, knowledge of performance, or even results. You can do it by yourself, by just videotaping yourself. Videotaping yourself and watching your own videos. That's something that we do a lot, right? So that's the difference between KR and KP. Always sincere, constructive feedback, motivational and instructional, and all kinds of feedback. Because some people just like a pat on the back. Some people like praising them with words. Just go with whatever. Just know your players, right? Don't focus on criticism. Don't focus on sarcasm. Don't use. Don't just stop being physical. And for those of you, that's another video I saw in classes. Coach Rice, the head basketball coach for men's basketball for Rutgers, who was very physical with his players, and then videos, surfaced at ESPN, and he got fired. And don't use guilt. All right, punishment. Is punishment good or bad? All depends. All depends. As you can see, there's support and there's criticism, right? In general, don't use too much. That's what we say. So you can see the percentages there. But punishment does work. And sometimes it's necessary. Okay? So as you can see, punishment, for example, can deter future cheating or wrongdoing. I'm sure you have been punished. And as a coach, I'm sure you will feel the need, or you're actually going to punish one of your players. Somebody's late, you're not playing next time. Okay. Now you see the criticisms as well. You can shame somebody. In general, don't create a toxic environment. And punishment can do that kind of easily, right? A lot of ways to make a punishment effective. For example, you are punishing the behavior, not the person, right? So you don't make them sound like they're not punctual in general. Like, this time your behavior was like this, you were late, so no exceptions, the rule, blah 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 blah. You're always straightforward. They know what to expect. You do the same for everybody. And the last dot, like, I don't know, in your class, sometimes the teacher would punish somebody for doing something bad, but that kid, usually when you're younger, would see it as a good thing because it would draw attention. So if something like that is going on, do not keep doing it, find another way, don't use punishment, find something else. Mhm. Use age-appropriate punishment for sure. Don't get physical. Don't use conditioning. A lot of people use conditioning. I've worked as a strength coach with professional teams, and players would do something, and they will like, go to coach, and he will just make you run. Okay, yeah, I know. All right. Now, is behavior modification a thing? Yes, it is, and especially with youth, we use sport for behavior modification, whether you call it that or behavioral coaching or contingency management. Lately, we call it behavioral coaching. Um, a lot of examples. Yeah, okay. Behavioral modification and CBT, cognitive behavior theory, like self-talk, something that we employ together, and it has been found effective. All right, intrinsic motivation, right? Well, let's talk about motivation. I'm sure you heard about intrinsic and extrinsic. Intrinsic, you play for the love of the game, you just love playing, and that's a great example that we use for intrinsic motivation. And we usually say, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for intrinsic motivation. Even when we talk about fitness goals, like if somebody tells you, um, I wanna I came to you because I want to be able to play with my kids. That's intrinsic motivation. That's powerful, right? Here we have figure 7.1. You see all the way to the right, intrinsic motivation, and all the way to the left, motivation. So also you see that there's a continuum that has to do with self-determination. We'll have low self-determination all the way to the left, and we'll have high self-determination all the way to the right. Obviously, as you expect, we want you to be, or our players to be, all the way to the right. Okay, so um, now we can break it down a little bit more. You see, we have simulation. So the person engages into that experience because of the pleasant sensations such as fun, right? Now, if you want to take it a little bit further, the person engages in that again activity because you know feels great about mastering a specific skill, and all the way to the right. So the most intrinsic of the intrinsic types of motivation is knowledge. So that person engages in that activity because loves learning, loves getting better, loves reaching their potential. Okay, so that's the strongest or the most intrinsic of all motivations. Now, as we move to the middle, we have extrinsic motivation, and we start with the integrated. Integrated is just, it is extrinsic, but it's kind of extrinsic and intrinsic. It's very interesting um, because the activity is important and valued by that person because he values the outcome than just the activity itself. So that's the most intrinsic of the extrinsic motivations. And then we have the identified behavior highly valued. So it is performed willingly. Okay. Now the interjected, we have here the individual is motivated by some internal pressures. And for example, I go to the gym so I look better for the opposite sex. And then the most extrinsic of the extrinsic motivation is the external regulation. So this is completely controlled by external factors. And here we have some kind of rewards. So I work more hours because I'm getting paid per hour, and that's it, nothing else. Now, a motivation or a motivation, however you want to pronounce it, I'm doing it. I'm doing whatever I need to do, but I just don't care. I just don't care anymore. I don't care to be a student anymore. I don't care to be a professor anymore. I don't care to be a coach anymore. I don't care to be a player anymore. I just don't care. Just go and then go home, and that's it. Okay. So that's the whole continuum, and I wanted to stay here for a little bit. Now, I may come back to the figure because it helps sometimes to point out things. Factors influencing intrinsic motivation, social factors, as you can see, psychological factors. You see self-determination theory there, need for competence, autonomy, and relatedness. We talked about that before. I'll talk a little bit about passion in sport. Passion is not bad, it's not good either. Excuse me, it depends, right? You see harmonious passion, HD, and you see obsessive passion. In the first case, whatever activity, let's say I'm going to the gym, it doesn't interfere with my life. I'm just passionate about it, right? The obsessive passion, it interferes with my life, other parts of my life. So I prefer to go there than go out, just meet my friends, just go to the restaurant, just everything revolves around that activity. For example, going to the gym. Um, if I want to be passionate about it, it helps me if I select the activity, if I value the activity, and then what kind of internalization I'm gonna consider. Now, can extrinsic rewards undermine intrinsic motivation? So, in other words, can I move from this side to this side? All right, I'll give you an example. So let's say your little brother or sister doesn't want to go out and play at all. They love video games, right? And you tell them that if if you go outside and you play for 2 hours, I'm gonna make you your favorite food, or I'm gonna let you even play video games for an hour, Fortnite, whatever they like. Let's say Fortnite. Okay. So here we're giving them some extrinsic motivation to move them from here to somewhere here. Okay. Now, if I use the same incentives for somebody who was doing it for who wanted to go outside and play because they loved it, right? And I'm using the same example. So if you go outside, I'm gonna let you play video games, or I'm gonna make your favorite food, I'm gonna give you a cookie, whatever. Then by using the same example, I move them from the right side to the left side. Here, I'll move them from the left side towards the right side. So what I'm trying to say is extrinsic motivation is not good or bad. If we want to move somebody from all the way from the left side of the continuum towards the right side of the continuum, go for it and slowly try to move them even towards the right side. But if they're here, why? And I'll give you another example. I could mention later on, but I'll mention right now. I think it's very relevant. Okay, think about D1 student, right, who plays their sport as a collegiate athlete, student athlete, because they love the game, and then they go pro. When they go pro, it's all about the money. It's all about those contracts. Okay, what are they going to sign for how many years? Let's say football, right? Which is just started and it's NFL season. So and we're talking about a lot of money. So if you get drafted, which is very unlikely based on percentages, but if you do get drafted, you were here, and now because they give you so much money, you started moving to the left. Okay, I think that's a perfect example to see again that how extrinsic incentives can be harmful for intrinsic motivation. All right, let me go back to where I was, which is this. I hope I proved this point. A lot of examples here. We have CET. So here we have a subtheory of the CDT, the self-determination theory that I mentioned like 5 minutes ago. It has to do with how I perceive something, the factors that facilitate or undermine the development of intrinsic motivation. Okay, so how I perceive that, how I perceive it. As you can see, how rewards are perceived is critical. Okay, that's the difference about CT. That's the extra part that this theory adds on. Yeah, that's another example. Scholarships. Are you are you? Let's say you have student athletes. You have D3, but imagine you were D2 or D1. Are you? How do you perceive your scholarship? Do you get your scholarship because you play? That's how you think about it, or you play because you receive a scholarship. Let me ask you again. So, do you receive your scholarship because you play, or do you play because you receive a scholarship? If you are a student athlete that sees that I'm receiving a scholarship because I play, like that's my payment. That's more extrinsic than the other way around. So again, we have the same incentive, which is a scholarship. You get a free ride, but it's how you perceive it that changes everything when it comes to motivation, of course. Okay, a lot of determinants. Enable athletes to know controlling. That's hard. That's hard, but you need to try and be very specific with each of your athletes. Because again, you may think that you enable them, but they may think you control them. Nothing too fancy here. We know that autonomy, supportive coaches are better in terms of motivation compared to controlling coaches. And Coach Rice at Rutgers was a controlling coach, or a coach that was exhibiting a lot of controlling behavior. So you can see on the left side the difference between autonomy, and the right side the controlling coaching behavior. And Coach Rice, you can see the videos if you haven't already, but you can see what he was doing, and you can see why his behavior would be characterized by what's on the right column. All right, flow. Have you heard about flow? Have you ever felt in the zone, as they say? Okay. Flow is a holistic, intrinsically motivating sensation that people feel when they're totally involved in an activity or are on automatic pilot. Okay. So flow is not something new that, it has been out there for a while now. And the people who have experienced flow, and later on in our chapters, we're going to talk about the runner's high. That's kind of a subcategory of flow. And I recently wrote a chapter for a sports psychology book that's going to publish in Mexico. It's in Spanish, that has to do with the runner's high and how it is explained from neurophysiological perspective, how the brain perceives it, with some kind of explanations that we may have. But the people who have experienced flow, they love it. They give us details about it, and they describe a pretty awesome experience. And of course, if it feels so positive, you want to experience it again, right? So what do we feel? What do we feel? Balance of challenge and skills. That's important. We'll see a figure in a little bit. Complete absorption, clear goals, merging of action and awareness, total concentration, loss of self-consciousness, a sense of control, no goals or rewards external to the activity, transformation of time, and effortless movement. So like people, for example, that play basketball, they're just so effortless, right? The basket looks like huge. Everything is going in. Everything looks like you're receiving the information like a Matrix kind of movie situation, that everything looks that moves around you, like moves slower, and you can accept and use all that information uh, and use it in a way that you are successful, and you have that sense, that euphoric sensation. You feel so good, right? So these are all elements of people that, people trying to explain that, how they experience flow. All right, here is our figure diagram. You see that we have two axes and we have challenge against skills. So if we go to the left side, if the challenge is low and the skills are low, we have apathy. We don't care, we don't do anything, it's just like, right? If the skills are low and the challenge is high, then we have anxiety. Okay, and we talked about that last week. I hope you remember. Now, if the challenge is low and the skills are high, we'll have boredom. And I've coached a lot of people in the US and in Europe, professional and collegiate, right? The very good players, or the whole team. If, like, let's say I coached women's basketball at Baylor, right? One of the top teams in the country. So when we would play another team, and just we knew it would be like easier than practice, pretty much. You would see, especially the top players, just getting bored, just like they weren't interested, right? If you beat them by 30 in the halftime or by 40, and then we have the fourth kind of situation where skills are high and challenges high. So you feel like you can do it and you're getting challenged, and that's, according to this model, when you can experience flow. Those are the best conditions. Challenge high, skills high. Excuse me. But we cannot control flow. A lot of times people are trying to do whatever they did. It's not working. A lot of times not working because you weren't by yourself. Like, you can't control everything. And if you were by yourself, there's so many variables that you may be missing, right? You can't just replicate a situation to a T, and just, it's practically impossible. But athletes are trying to figure out ways to increase the probability of that happening. Now, what's flow and what's clots? Clots is when we may have some negative thoughts, and there's a lot of high stake decisions over there. So, like, if we make that last shot, I'm going to use basketball again, we're winning the championship. That's a clutch state. Flow state is not necessarily a very, we don't have to make that shot. It's not that important. Okay. There is intensity, excitement, but not in a way, that it is in a clutch state. Let me see. You can see that you have to try to stay in present, use whatever pre-competitive and competitive plans or routines you have, and you think they're working, whatever preparation, mental, physical. And of course, don't remember that your skills have to kind of match the challenge, okay? Environmental, situational conditions, temperature, sun, if it's sunny, when it happened before, whatever. Um, be mindful, anything. So we also know some factors that can prevent flow from occurring. So if you're injured, if you're tired, if you're not ready physically, if you don't feel that you're ready physically, right? If there are other stresses like agents are coming to see you during the game, or your family, or you're playing it away and it's very hostile, anything that you cannot control in general. That's why I said in the very beginning, it's so hard to just replicate all variables. Negative mental state, inappropriate focus, of course, overanalyzing things. You arrive late at the venue, you don't have time to do your routine, you're not challenged enough, you're under aroused, feeling too relaxed to something happen, from part of it. Like it's so much, that can just prevent you from experiencing again. Even the refs, yeah. All right. So the last thing here that we're going to talk about today is, does flow have a negative side? Usually we don't talk about it. And usually we say flow is good, try to make it happen again, try to experience it again. But there are some examples with surfers, because of that euphoric feeling, they were trying so much to make it happen again so they can experience it again. And they were putting themselves into danger or dangerous situations. And so they're trying to catch the biggest wave because they think that's one big part of them experience flow. But at the same time, it's very dangerous and they could just get injured or even die. Right? So there is some negative side of flow. So it's kind of addictive in a way. All right, I was right. That was the last slide. I'm going to stop sharing. Here I am. So we talked about what's due for next week, right? I gave you feedback. I think if you have any more questions, don't forget that we have office hours tomorrow from 8 to 12:30, 4.5 hours. Let me know, send me an email, whatever is going on. Just I'm here for you. I want you to have a great week. In the meantime, lift intentionally, not habitually. Bye, guys.